Hi, everyone. This is Jacqui Cooper with CryptoMom2, and I am here today with a visual digital artist who has a remarkable story, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you today. I wanted to, just for those that might not know about my talk show, I wanted to give a little bit of a background. Personally, my background is that I'm an attorney, but I'm also a special educator and I'm also an entrepreneur. And I also have recently become involved in the cryptocurrency area. And I'm very, very curious about all the areas that have been developing in this world. And I'm excited to be exploring my own journey as well as those of others. And recently, I just became familiar with a term that is called NFT. And I had no clue what that meant a few weeks ago. But I was talking to 3 different individuals that are going to be coming on at some point onto the talk show. And each one of them said something about the NFT area. And so the first one I said, what is that? And he said, well, NFT is non-fungible token. And basically that is, to my understanding, a token which cannot be divided into pieces. So I then started to explore various groups, and I learned that artists are also creating music, visual arts, everything on NFTs. And it's also a way that nonprofits are also raising money through auctioning off this art. So I decided to explore this because I have a personal interest with my aunt, who's an artist, that I want to create a NFT for her so she can raise money for her art. But today we actually have a digital artist, Kai, who's based in California, but he has roots from all around the world. And he's going to share his experiences, and we're going to be looking at his art and learning more about this fascinating area. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So we were talking off camera a little bit. I love your name. Can you introduce your full name, because it is so melodic and artistic in its own way?
Oh, thank you. Sure. My full name is KaiKani Laigo, and my first name, KaiKani, is Hawaiian for sound of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a little obscure, but that's my name.
and your last name has roots in which cultures?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my last name is Laigo, which is it's actually a Portuguese name, but it comes from my Filipino roots. So it's from my Filipino grandfather.
That's awesome. So what's your background? How did you get into, we're going to be looking at your art in a second, but how did you get involved?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of a journey. I'm originally from Hawaii. I was born and raised there, and actually lived there until I was 30. So I was, pretty set there for a while. I've always been a musician and a visual artist. And, the music scene in Hawaii is pretty, it's nice, but it's pretty limited. It's a small little state. So when I was about 30, I moved to Los Angeles and just jumped into the music industry here. And I have been working pretty much in the music industry for the last 10 years. And just in the last couple months, actually, I've gotten into NFTs. And it's like you said, it's the Wild West. It's a really interesting time for art right now because of this market that's popped up. And it seems to have kind of taken the world by storm, because Saturday Night Live is making skits about it, and everyone is seemingly asking what an NFT is. So it's a very fresh new time right now for sure. So yeah.
So what kind of music do you play?
I play a lot of different things. Right now I'm focusing mainly on electronic music that's 80s inspired. So a term a lot of people like to use is synthwave, but that's sort of a catch-all term for music that's electronic and 80s and sort of, like an 80s pop or a new wave sound. So I do that. I just released a record of that kind of music. But I do a lot of other stuff too. I do heavy metal and rock and stuff. So it's kind of just depends on what I'm doing at the moment.
So how did you end up getting into the cryptocurrency world and the NFT world?
Sure. Well, I first got into cryptocurrency a couple of years ago, and I'll be honest with you. I first heard about Bitcoin when it was at $1,
Oh, wow.
and that's when I remember hearing about it and thinking, "Wow, this is a novel thing. I should buy some." I didn't actually buy any until it hit about $230 per Bitcoin,
You're
and
better than me.
and
I just kept it going.
yeah, yeah, and looking back now, that seems like such an outrageously low value, and it's really funny because I remember back then thinking, man, I probably missed the boat. I'm probably throwing away this $200. It's gonna be nothing. But I invested into that, and even more unfortunately, to be honest, I saw it rise to about $400, and about then I found out that you could gamble online with cryptocurrency. And I'm not really like a big gambler, but for me it was still a novel thing. And I was thinking, what can you really do with this? I kind of want to spend it. I kind of want to see what I can buy with the Bitcoin. So I gambled and won a little bit here and there, and then it just ended up losing it all, to be honest. So that whole process left such a bad taste in my mouth, and just regret that I kind of just tried to forget about it.
Yeah.
And again, that's probably not the right thing to do. And forgetting about it meant just not investing in crypto or paying attention to it. And then next thing you know, a Bitcoin is worth like tens of thousands of dollars. So actually the NFT market and this whole rise of the NFT is what got me back into cryptocurrency too. And it's really good. It's actually good because when you think about it, cryptocurrency is going to be the way of the future. It's going to be how we make probably even simple little transactions in the future, and to be familiar with it and to be investing in it. And even if you don't have a lot of money, just like you mentioned earlier, like to open up a wallet, you don't even have to necessarily put any money into it, but just to familiarize yourself with these things,
Mhm.
it's probably way better to be doing that now than later.
So you decided as an artist, or how did you learn about NFTs?
Well, so that's interesting too. I really just got an email from this random artist that I follow, a 3D artist. So I do a lot of different things. Primarily, I'm a musician, but I do graphic art and 3D animation and a lot of different things. So there's this 3D animator who I follow, and on his newsletter, he sent out a newsletter that was about NFTs. And I remember reading it and not really grasping what an NFT was at all, and just thinking this is and just I was stricken by how strange of a newsletter it was, even for a 3D artist. And I was like, this seems really weird. So I decided to look into it. And the more I looked into it, the more interesting it became. And soon it just dawned on me. Soon it became clear that this is going to be how musicians and artists and creative people in general sell their work in the future.
So how did you I'm gonna oops, hold on a second. Let me stop sharing for a second. I wish I shared the wrong screen. I'll get to your art in a second. Technically, sometimes that mistakes do happen like that. How did you get into figuring out which platform you wanted to use?
Yeah, so that's another thing too, is typically in my typical fashion, I'll just jump into the pool, into the deep end, and kind of figure it out by drowning a couple times or whatever. So I really just watched a couple YouTube videos and just Googled NFT platforms, NFT markets, and actually made a little list of all the different ones out there. And I'm actually on a bunch of them, to be honest. I started with Wearable just to see how the process went. So I have one thing on Wearable. Then I went to Ghostmarket, which is a totally different Ghostmarket that uses a different. It doesn't even use Ethereum necessarily. I have things on Ghostmarket, and last but not least, I'm on OpenSea, which is what we're looking at right now, I believe.
Yep.
And I published a collection on OpenSea last week, and I'll probably even join some other markets too, to be honest. But I figured that the best way to really learn the nuts and bolts about how they work and just the specific things that artists might want to know, like what the upload process is like and what it looks like when you sell an NFT. just to jump in there and just do it, you know. So I've experienced a lot of those things so far on these different platforms. So even though I don't have a great behind the scenes technical understanding of blockchain technology and things like that, I think in the last couple of weeks I've developed a decent working understanding of several different NFT platforms, and especially just a lot of the questions that artists have getting into this. How much does it cost? What do I have to do? How should I prepare my artwork? Those are all actually pretty simple questions. But I had to kind of do it first to figure it out.
Yeah, well, you're right. They seem simple until you are actually in the process of going through a platform. And when I looked into it, as you mentioned, some platforms you do have to do an initial fee in order, even though different people have told me that your initial fee, you can still have basically an unlimited collection after your initial one. So I guess it's just a question of figuring out, okay, what's the price of your first one to get it sort of low enough that your fee isn't outrageous.
Yeah, yeah. So what I did for that on OpenSea was I just published an initial like an image, just some artwork that I had done, and not anything special, just to get that initial transaction out of the way so I could publish a collection.
Yeah.
And there's a couple different things to keep in mind. So I'm pretty sure that the initial fee is going to be the same regardless of what you're selling or how much you sell your NFT for. So you could list an NFT that you want to sell for, say, 3 Ethereum, which would be like thousands of dollars, or you could sell an NFT that you list for 0.0 Ethereum, and it would be the same, I think. But what does make the cost go up or down are the gas fees, the Ethereum gas fees that fluctuate based on actual network usage. So that's why a lot of people, which is really confusing too, because if you go into Facebook and say, hey, how much does it cost to open an account on OpenSea? People can't really give you a straight answer, because for
Yeah.
one person it might have been $50, for another person it might have been $150. And then to make matters even more confusing is that it actually takes 2 transactions to basically solidify your OpenSea account. So
What do you mean by 2 transactions? 2 sales or 2 postings?
actually two separate literal transactions within your Metamask wallet. So and really it happens with one posting. And again, this is why it's kind of confusing. So what you do is when you post something, I believe basically it breaks down to the fee when you post your first thing gets broken up into 2 charges. Basically, there's like an initial charge that is based on, I believe, opening up your OpenSea account, and then the second charge is, I think, some other charge with maybe actually listing the item or something. So it's, for whatever reason, I don't think they can bundle them together. So it does come in 2 separate transactions, and one is a lot larger than the other. So the first one is kind of like the bulk of your account, I guess your account cost. And for me, I think my total cost was about $70. So the first transaction was like $59. And then the second transaction, which came, I think, like 15 minutes or maybe a half hour later, was like $11. So I think that second one was more to do with the specific gas prices with putting something onto their network. And the first one was more of a general fee. I'm not exactly sure. Again, I don't really read a lot of the fine print, so I couldn't tell you exactly. And don't quote me on any of these things. I'm probably wrong when it comes to the terms of service and things like that. But I can tell you for a fact that it is 2 separate fees. They are both bundled into the same listing, the same initial listing that you make. And and if you do read their terms of service, it'll tell you that too. It'll tell you that that the transactions do come in 2 separate transactions. So that's really all that is. And but again, that confuses some people, because some people will see the second transaction and not understand that it's part of the deal, basically.
Yeah.
And deny that one and think that, and I think that probably messes up the whole process, you know?
Well, I know
So,
that in my initial looking, and again, it was about 10 days ago, so my memory is a little foggy, but the actual initial fee was higher. And like you said, it will depend upon the timing of when you do it. And I didn't go through to the second one because I was trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? But for
right.
those that might not know what MetaMask is, that's one of the other wallets that, again, I haven't explored on the Crypto Mom show, but there's a variety of places that you can go to with that. It's Ethereum based. What do you know about the MetaMask that maybe you can share?
Sure. So it does seem that there, like you said, there are several different wallets, and probably a bunch if you actually made a list of all the available ones. But it seems that of all the different NFT sites that I've interacted with, they all give you a couple different options, but MetaMask seems to be the common option among them all. So you know, you probably don't want to have more wallets than you deem necessary or whatever, and just for convenience, I like to have one that I interact with, you know, different platforms with. So I went with MetaMask, and my MetaMask works with OpenSea and also Wearable. So and interestingly enough, it actually seems that there are even other platforms that are like relisting platforms that will just pick up your account and basically like I'm not exactly sure what the term is, but like mirror it basically onto like some
Interesting.
other completely, because in my research I found these other platforms that I'm on that I didn't upload anything to, and they're basically just mirroring my OpenSea account or whatever. But the interesting thing about those is that when I log on to those websites with my MetaMask wallet, it basically imports like some of the information and stuff, and like basically like pre-populates your account with
Are
some
there any
information.
additional fees for being on those or no?
I don't think so. No, not that I've seen. Probably if you try to list something through them exclusively,
Yeah.
probably there would be. But as far as what they're doing, just the mirroring process, no.
So they might get a commission when it gets sold there. And they might
Probably.
have some sort of relationship with OpenSea. It sounds similar to like my podcast, where the more episodes I do in different with different topics, I'm now pushed out to 8 different areas. And they're pushing it out. I don't have to. So when in the Wearable, is there a cost for listing on Wearable?
Yeah, Wearable is a different platform. It's similar to OpenSea. The reason I didn't stay with Wearable is that their structure is that you pay every single time you list an NFT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What's is it a lesser cost though?
well, one NFT was about $50 to list there. So it seemed to me that it was pretty much comparable with my first OpenSea listing.
Yeah.
You know, it was probably about the same amount of Ethereum actually, even though the dollar cost was more because I think the price of Ethereum went up. But yeah, I think Wearable, you literally have to pay sort of like an OpenSea initial account listing price every time you list something. So I don't really know what the advantage is. Maybe it's just more of an exclusive platform. That's kind of the vibe I got from it. And you know, that might be good for some people, or maybe some collectors or some buyers are interested in that for sure.
So which other platforms have you explored? And I've seen Foundation. Someone I think mentioned that you in order to get listed there, you have to have an invitation or something like that.
Yeah, from what I understand, that's the case. I haven't been invited there, but from what I understand is that it is an invitation process. And furthermore, and again, don't quote me on this, I'm not very familiar with it, but there are a lot of people applying and a lot of invites have been given out to the point where now their invitation process has actually changed. And if you are an invitee, you now have to get votes on a board or some kind of, there's some sort of like voting process that your work basically has to get peer reviewed and voted up until you can actually get accepted onto the platform.
Wow, wow.
So it seems very competitive.
Yeah,
Um,
now it
yeah.
is. What about other platforms that you've explored? What do you recommend to a newbie like myself who wants to kind of get my foot into this for someone else?
Okay, well, so one of the third platform that I've explored quite a bit, and I would definitely recommend is ghostmarket.io. And Ghostmarket is they're interesting. I don't have a whole lot of information on the the creators or the backstory, but from what I gather, it's an upstart, and they actually are on the Phantasma network. So
Wow.
so they don't necessarily use Ethereum. You can list things in Ethereum, you can charge Ethereum, but their entire blockchain is actually Phantasma, which uses the Soul coin. And Sol is, from what I understand, it's actually like Bitcoin in that it has a finite amount. So it will experience some inflation, but the inflation right now is really low. As far as I've been dealing with it, it hasn't. It's about $1. I want to say maybe like 75 cents per one Sol coin, and it's been pretty stable. And the other interesting thing is that because of this, the low inflation and the general low prices, it's really cheap to list there. So that's another complaint I hear among artists is people are saying, where can I list for free? Where can I list for relatively low cost? And the answer to that is basically listing on a non-Ethereum blockchain, because if you do that, then you avoid the high gas prices and the high network usage. Of course, the drawback to that is that you're listing with a coin that just doesn't have a lot of people using it. There aren't many adopters.
Yeah.
So that is a drawback. But but with Ghost Market, it seems like they're making a big push to not only capture a bunch of musicians and artists and have them on their market, but they're making a push to make Soulcoin more of a adopted thing. So we'll see with that. And I'm sort of putting a couple eggs into that basket for sure, because I like their market and I think that they're doing a pretty good job of being very friendly towards musicians, and definitely being a musician, that's interesting.
So one of the things that I'm going to mention to everyone, even though we sort of have mentioned it at the beginning, neither of us are financial advisors, and so everything that we're sharing simply our opinions and based upon our own personal experience. And you need to do your own research. But again, for musicians, how have you actually uploaded? I know you've done digital art. Have you uploaded some of your music to a token as well?
I have actually. I've uploaded quite a few songs, and that's the cool thing is I've sold at least one song on Ghostmarket, and I sold it for about like $20, $30, maybe something like that. But it's cool just to have a sale. And again, just
Yeah.
just to see the process, and
How
you know,
was
it,
the process? For those that might not know, when you create a token, it's on the blockchain, right? And
yes.
so, and basically you're contracting that this object, this art, this music now is going to be transferred over to someone else. So what have you found the experience to be like?
I mean, it's pretty simple. It's really not too much different from selling a CD or selling, a concert ticket or something. And it's really painless and pretty cool. The funds go straight into your wallet, and I'm sure it's a little bit different for every platform. Some platforms might give you a notification. Ghost Market didn't actually, and maybe that's just because they're new and their UI is kind of being worked on. But yeah, I mean, it all went through perfectly though, so no complaints. You see the funds, show up, and you see the actual NFT transfer to another random person's account. And another important thing too to keep in mind for artists is that so like you said, NFTs operate on the concept of a smart contract,
Right.
which a smart contract can really be anything you want. You can make it's like a regular contract. You can write whatever you want, right? But it seems to be with most of these art-based NFTs, there's a commission process built in,
Uh,
where because as you can sell an NFT to someone online, those people can resell them too. So the idea is that if this buyer resells it again, you get a commission basically from that sale, and you can actually
awesome.
and you can actually choose your percentage when you're making the NFT, so you can make it kind of whatever you want. The common percentage seems to be about 10%. That's really all the tutorials and guides I say that that's sort of the commonly accepted percentage. And if you go above that, you should definitely inform the buyer. But 10% is pretty much what most of the smart contracts kind of offer by default. And so, and the cool thing about that is coming from the music background, you see, the classic thing is you have an artist, you have a band, and they start out as a local band somewhere and they sell demo tapes, and then they become rich and famous. And then one day that, that original demo tape or demo album is on eBay for $10,000 or something,
Exactly.
and that kind of thing really does happen. Even to this day, that happens with new bands, But the problem is bands never, you don't get a cut of that because,
Yeah,
the person selling it on eBay just takes the money,
that's right.
But with an NFT, that all changes. That's kind of the cool thing about all of this is that if that music gets resold down the road for whatever price, you now get, 10% from that sale.
So quick question on the, because I haven't gone through the entire process yet. I know I will be doing that within the next week, and anyone who's listening definitely understand that there'll be contact information below, so you'll be able to buy the artwork that you're learning about, but you can also reach out to either of us. But is the standard language of the contract already built into the platform, or do you have to think about the language that you want to attach it to your NFT?
The standard language is built into the platform.
Okay.
But with that said, I would definitely advise people out there who are doing this for themselves to read the terms of service. Even though I just earlier said I don't read terms of service, I do try to, especially when it comes to these sorts of things. So definitely see what their standard contract is, and that is something that you can find in the terms of service. Just read what their standard NFT contract is, because that is basically what you're giving your music to, or the terms under which you're selling your music or art, of course. So you're right. So the beauty is you don't actually have to think about it. So you if you're not thinking about that, you don't have to write legalese, you don't have to come up with any sort of contract yourself. There is a standard contract, and upon just me reviewing them, I haven't found anything egregious or crazy or anything. Usually they pretty much just say you're selling your artwork to this person, you're not transferring any rights, but of course anything else you want to add on top of that is on you, and you can do. You just have to basically write your own contract. And the way that actually works, which is pretty simple too, is if you do want to make something crazy or funky or something extra special, you basically just add that to the description of the NFT when you create it. Because that description box, it is just kind of a description box, but it's more than that. That's data that gets attached to the blockchain with the actual NFT. So, that can be, any kind of stipulation or anything that you would definitely want the buyer to adhere to legally. You can put there, and then that is there attached to the actual blockchain.
So for those that might be new to this, and trust me, I'm new to this, but I'm trying to learn the language. And so hopefully what I'm sharing will help everyone. My understanding of blockchain, it's like Legos. One piece fits into the other. And so that's why it is really hard to hide things, because every piece is transparent in some way. Your personal identity might be not transparent because it's coded with numbers, but it is a mathematical equation. It is definitely coding. So just like what you said, if it is on the blockchain, so that means that everything is accountable and traceable.
Exactly.
So and that's exciting. So what's your next adventure? You're creating more art, more music?
Yeah. Well, I definitely would actually I'm thinking I'm definitely going to make another collection connected to the collection I just released. And if you don't mind me talking about that a little bit more, it might actually speak to some of your travel listeners.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, I'm from Hawaii, and I've been living in Los Angeles for the last 10 years or so. But Hawaii is a very special place. It's literally one of the most interesting melting pots you'll ever see of cultures, of just people from around the world. of different parts of the US coming together, different parts of the Pacific Rim, basically. And so what I did is I basically created a collection to celebrate all this. And so it's called Crypto Brothers, and
I love it.
Brothers being like brothers, but in a Hawaiian pidgin. And it's sort of is like CryptoPunks. And if your listeners aren't familiar with CryptoPunks, that's probably one of the most popular NFT collections that on the scene. And they're basically just pixel art characters, so little caricature drawings of people. And basically, the company that makes them gave them away at first, and lo and behold, they got really popular, and people started reselling them. So upon, like I said, upon the resales, people are now reselling these little pixel art people for like $10,000, $40,000.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and the creators are getting 10%, assuming 10% of each one of those resales. So what I did is basically copied that model and made 100 different little pixel art people of different nationalities, different ethnicities, 50 women, 50 men, and just different little faces and characters. And I didn't just stop there. I gave each one a unique set of attributes, a name, and sort of like a little character profile. And I didn't stop there. I actually attached each one into a 3D animated background that's dynamic and flashing, and it's pretty cool. I don't know if you remember Pogs.
I
Um,
don't. I don't.
okay, well, it was kind of a fad from the 90s. It was a game where basically it's these little milk caps, like these little cardboard milk caps that kids used to stack up and hit with another milk cap. It was just a little fad. So it's the 3D animation is basically one of those spinning around and doing some cool little moves. So
So do you have, when will that be out?
that's already out. That's actually on the OpenSea page
Okay.
that we were looking at. That's what that is. So yeah, so and they're actually for free too. Just to let you know that I'm not even charging any money for them. There is a gas fee. If you do want to claim one, you do have to pay the transaction fee, which is a gas fee. But there is actually no charge associated to the actual NFT. So I'm not making any money. There's no initial sale. But if they do resell at all, I'm really hoping that they do gain in popularity and that people do trade them and start selling them. So for whatever resales do occur, I'm giving 15% of all income to the Hawaiian Humane Society
Awesome.
as a little give back. So
I think that's awesome. Definitely, I did see that there was $0 amount on there, and I just didn't ask, but I'm glad you brought that up and you shared. So for everyone who's listening, there'll definitely be contact information both in the podcast as well as on the YouTube. And, if you're driving and you're not able to remember which episode this is, just reach out to me at JCooperTravels@gmail.com. Even though I'm doing the Crypto Mom, I have more than one podcast. And so JCooperTravels@gmail.com, definitely. So thank you so much for being on. I love it. We're going to definitely have more conversations. The NFT world is just breaking out and it's phenomenal. I mean, again, it might have been around for a while, but I'm just learning about it. So I am excited
same
about
here.
having, new experiences with it. And thank you so much for being on.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Appreciate it.